He who destroys his own home to chase the wind will inherit the whirlwind. The wise man builds his fortress in silence, while the fool seeks applause in the ruins. Solomon's Reflection. At the beginning, it seems like liberation. She says she needs to rediscover herself, that she wants to find herself, that it is not your fault, that she just lost her spark. But what she doesn't say, what almost no woman admits, is that something inside her breaks as well. When divorce happens, the man feels the impact of an implosion, an internal earthquake. She, on the other hand, lives the explosion. She leaves home with a mixture of adrenaline and fear, believing the world will reward her for following her heart. For a while, everything seems new, exciting, promising. She cuts her hair, changes her style, posts smiling photos with captions about overcoming. The new version of her is carefully constructed, not for herself, but for the eyes that are still watching her. It is the theater of liberation, but the human brain does not rebuild itself with hashtags. There is a silent reconfiguration happening, the so-called emotional neuroplasticity. What used to be a circuit of security, routine, and belonging is now replaced by a circuit of self-affirmation and social survival. She starts seeking stimuli that validate her new identity: attention, approval, novelty. Each like becomes a fulfilled micro-desire. Each message received is a reminder that she is still desirable. External validation begins to replace the internal love she lost when she left the structure of marriage. While the man faces the silence of the void and tries to understand what went wrong, she tries to fill hers with movement. She goes out more, talks more, changes her circle of friends. The liberated friends appear. The advice that you deserve more multiplies. She believes she is rising, but she is only fleeing, because deep down, her mind is still connected to the bond she built for years. The body may change beds, but the soul still carries the mark of the name she abandoned. It is at this point that the deepest mutation begins, the displacement of identity. The wife ceases to exist. A woman emerges who needs to prove something to the world and to herself. She doesn't just want to be free. She wants to be validated for having chosen freedom. She wants to be seen as strong, desirable, modern. The old woman who cared, who waited, who dreamed of stability, is slowly replaced by a version that swears she needs no one. But the more she repeats this, the more her unconscious screams the opposite. Meanwhile, the man, lost between pain and silence, still believes he was discarded because he wasn't good enough. He doesn't realize that her transformation is not just emotional, it is chemical. Her dopaminergic system enters a mode of constant search for the new, the exciting, the different. Everything becomes fuel to sustain the void left by the absence of the home. That is why many men get confused when they see her so happy after the divorce. It is not happiness, it is anesthesia. But time is a silent enemy, and the same circuit that feeds on validation begins to wear out. When the likes decrease, when the glances no longer come with the same intensity, when the dates become superficial, the void returns. Only now it is deeper, because she no longer has the home to return to. The man, even if wounded, can rebuild. The woman, when she realizes she burned the bridges behind her, faces the mirror with fear. That is when she starts to question herself, not out loud, but in the early hours when the phone is silent and no one is looking. The woman who believed she was the center of her new world realizes that the world is cold when the ego is not fed. It is the beginning of the painful awakening that almost no one mentions, because the social discourse needs to maintain the illusion of female liberation as a victory. But inside her, the truth is different. She misses being cared for, having someone who saw her with tenderness, not just with desire. She realizes that freedom without purpose is just disguised loneliness. The modern woman, after divorce, often becomes a prisoner of her own narrative. And this is the secret no one tells men, because admitting this would be revealing that, despite appearances, her void is as deep as his, perhaps even more. With time, the transformation deepens. The woman who previously defined herself by the bond starts to define herself by its absence. She no longer wants to be remembered as someone's ex, so she creates a persona, a new social identity molded by pain and necessity. This new version speaks of empowerment, but lives on memories. She smiles at the world, but feels the weight of choices during the hours when no one is around. Society applauds the woman who moved on, but no one asks the emotional price of this step, because the truth is that moving on is sometimes just running in circles. Men rarely see this process. When they look from the outside, they see only the woman who seems well, who seems happy, and believes she has completely forgotten him.
But it is not quite like that. The female brain has a greater tendency toward rumination, a type of mental looping that relives past emotions. And the more she tries to erase, the stronger the memory becomes. That is why even months later, small memories return like ghosts. His perfume, the sound of his laugh, the touch of the daily life that will not return. Only now she cannot admit it, because pride prevents her. In this moment, pride becomes the new anchor. She starts to rationalize. It was for the best. He didn't deserve me. I needed this. These are phrases she repeats to convince her mind of what her heart still does not believe. It is a defense mechanism and also the beginning of emotional dissociation. Little by little, she learns to turn off affection, like someone turning off the lights of a room that was once a home. It is a self-induced anesthesia. She no longer wants to feel, because feeling is remembering, and remembering is suffering. It is in this anesthesia that behavior changes. The woman who previously valued deep connection now prefers superficial lightness, not because she changed completely, but because she broke internally. The love she offered before was full of surrender and vulnerability. Now it is filtered by fear and mistrust. That is why so many men who get involved with recently divorced women feel they are intense and distant at the same time. They want the touch, but avoid the bond. They seek company, but flee from intimacy. Society, blinded by the narrative of the independent woman, does not realize that this independence is sometimes just a mask, a defense against the pain of having believed too much. The woman who called herself free now binds herself to a new type of prison, that of image. She needs to seem well, seem happy, seem strong. And this demands constant energy. Inside, there is a tiredness growing in silence, an emotional exhaustion from sustaining a life that no longer feeds the soul. Meanwhile, the man follows a different path. In the beginning, he is the one who suffers most. The impact of abandonment, the loneliness of routine, the silence of the empty home. But it is precisely this silence that transforms him. Pain forces him to look at himself. What was despair turns into focus. What was neediness turns into discipline. He starts to rebuild slowly, without fanfare, without needing to prove anything to anyone. And it is in this silent reconstruction that the man is reborn. The woman, on the other hand, moves further and further away from her own essence. She starts to get used to a new type of pleasure, the pleasure of attention, of momentary power, of the psychological game. Some call this the phase of discovery, but it is, in fact, the phase of escape, because there is no discovery without internal confrontation. And she still avoids confrontation. She does not want to look in the mirror and see what she lost. She wants to believe she swapped lives, not that she lost one. But the masks begin to crack. The body feels it before the mind admits it. Anxiety grows. Sleep fails. The heart races at small things. The void begins to charge interest. It is the return of conscience. The neurochemistry of euphoria runs out, and the brain starts to demand something deeper, something the modern world no longer knows how to give meaning to. It is at this point that many men notice something curious. After months, sometimes years, she reappears. A vague message,
a memory, a "how are you?" It is not love. It is the reflection of a soul that begins to miss what it destroyed. But the time is no longer the same. The man she left behind is no longer the same man she knew. He evolved in pain, learned in silence, and saw the truth that few see. Divorce does not liberate, it reveals. Because deep down, what changes after divorce is not just the status, but the essence. And the woman who thought she was becoming free was actually becoming someone whom the void itself began to dominate.
After divorce, time becomes the greatest judge. In the first months, she still feels the power of novelty, new experiences, new people, new sensations. But time is relentless. The new loses its flavor, faces change, and loneliness begins to infiltrate the intervals between one pleasure and another. She begins to realize that freedom without direction is just a more sophisticated type of prison. Superficial conversations, repeated dates, attempts to feel desired, everything starts to have the same bitter taste of repetition. It is as if life has become a cycle of promises that are never kept. What was once excitement becomes routine. The cell phone, which used to vibrate with constant attention, is now silent for hours. The mirror that reflected the euphoria of transformation now shows a tired look. She begins to realize that behind the makeup and new clothes, there is a woman who no longer recognizes herself. The old identity was destroyed, but no new one managed to take its place. It is an identity void, the same void she tried to deny when she said she would move on. The female mind is complex. She creates narratives to justify emotions, but the unconscious never lies. Behind the ready-made phrases like, "It was best for me," "I am in another phase," "I learned to love myself," there exists a pain that finds no name. It is the pain of the loss of herself. Because when she left her husband, she didn't just abandon a man. She abandoned the woman she was beside him. And that version of her, the one who dreamed, cared, and saw herself as part of something greater, now no longer exists. She tries to fill the space with projects, with trips, with new goals, but nothing seems to satisfy. Because what she truly seeks is not success, it is meaning. And meaning is not born from the external. It is born from the bond. The human being is relational by nature, and when the bond is broken abruptly, the body feels as if it lost a limb. The brain keeps looking for what was lost, like a phantom hand trying to touch what is no longer there. Meanwhile, the man follows a quieter yet more stable path. He learns to be alone, learns to rise again amidst chaos. He learns that pain is a cruel but fair
teacher. And the more he accepts the loss, the more he matures. The woman, on the other hand, tries to deny the pain, and it is precisely this denial that binds her to the past. She believes that forgetting is a sign of strength, when in fact it is just resistance. True power lies in facing the shadow, not in running from it. That is why years later, many men who meet their ex-wives again notice something curious. The beauty remains, but there is something different in the look, a mixture of nostalgia and regret. She still smiles, but the smile is rehearsed. She speaks of achievements, but avoids mentioning what she lost, because deep down, she knows the price of freedom was too high. And the cruelest thing is that the world convinced her that this price was progress. The psychological transformation after divorce is not just emotional, it is spiritual. The woman goes through a process of disconnection from her essence. The archetype of the wife, representing welcoming, bonding, the home, is replaced by the archetype of the independent warrior. Only this war is waged against herself. The feminine, in its purest nature, is surrender. When she disconnects from this, she loses the capacity to nourish herself emotionally, and the result is a reactive existence, responses to the world, but without inner roots. She starts collecting experiences, but no experience fills her. She collects men, but no man truly touches her, because what she seeks is not another body. It is the reflection of the home she destroyed, and unconsciously she seeks the same type of man she left, not because she still loves him, but because she tries in some way to recreate the emotional structure she lost. Only now she does it with fear, and fear distorts everything. Men, in turn, notice something different. After a certain time, when they heal, they look back with lucidity. They understand that love does not always die. Sometimes it just changes form.
But they also realize that not every woman who leaves returns whole, because some get lost on the path of their own freedom. They believe they are choosing a new life, but in reality they are just moving away from their own soul. And that is where the cruelest irony of divorce arises. In the end, the man she thought she was losing is the same one she spends years trying to find again in other faces. Only he has already learned not to be found. With the passing of years, the transformations consolidate. The woman who one day believed she was starting a new life now lives between echoes of the past and illusions of the present. As the appearance changes, the essence screams. The shine of someone who moved on begins to lose strength in the face of the truths time reveals with cruelty. The mask of self-sufficiency weighs heavy. The world that once applauded her now forgets her. And in the silence of the early hours, when external voices cease, only the internal dialogue remains, the one she tried to avoid throughout the process. She thinks about the choices, the small decisions that seemed liberating, but that distanced her from herself. She thinks of the words she said, the doors she closed, the bridges she burned with pride, and starts to realize that behind the narrative of liberation existed only fear. Fear of aging, fear of routine, fear of being invisible. Divorce, deep down, was less about liberation and more about escape. Escape from her own vulnerability, from her own shadow, from the responsibility of maturing within love instead of escaping it. Now, what remains is consciousness, and it hurts. The post-divorce woman enters a silent phase, a kind of emotional desert where nothing blooms easily. She tries to love again, but the heart does not respond with the same surrender. Truth was replaced by analysis, spontaneity by calculation. Each gesture is measured, each emotion is filtered, and love, which previously flowed like a river, is now a glass of water she holds with fear of spilling. Meanwhile, the man she left follows an opposite path. In the beginning, he was destroyed. He lost his ground, lost his purpose, lost his faith. But this destruction purified him. He had to remake himself from scratch, learn to be sufficient, rebuild his own value without depending on validation. And in this process, he discovered something she still hasn't managed. True freedom is born from the mastery of oneself, not from escaping the other. He learned to transform pain into strength, loneliness into focus, rejection into power. When the reunion happens, and it always happens, even if only in memories, the difference is glaring. She looks at him and sees a different man, more centered, colder, more distant, and recognizes that he no longer seeks her. His look that once begged for answers is now the look of one who has understood everything. She feels the weight of this because, for the first time, she understands that the love he offered was not weakness. It was courage, and she traded it for a dream that never existed. Female psychology after divorce is a minefield of contradictions. She convinces herself she is stronger, but in truth, she is more sensitive. She calls herself more independent, but misses being cared for. She states she learned to love herself, but only feels alive when observed. The ego, now in command, tries to replace the heart, but fails, because the ego builds walls, and love only exists where there are bridges. In the end, there is no winner or loser. There is only the awakening. Divorce, like every deep rupture, is a test of consciousness. Some are reborn, others get lost. She may even rebuild a new life, but she will never be the same woman as before, because there is a price in denying one's own nature, and that price is the void. An elegant, silent void masked by phrases of empowerment and photos of fabricated happiness. The man, if he has learned, holds no grudge. He understands that love is not possession. It is a mirror, and the reflection she offered served for him to see how much he needed to elevate himself. That is why many men, after divorce, reach levels of maturity, success, and clarity they would never have within a relationship that diminished them. Pain made them grow. Abandonment made them strong. And ironically, the end became the beginning. The woman, on the other hand, continues trying to decipher what went wrong. She looks back with a mixture of nostalgia and denial. In some nights, she dreams of the past. In others, she tries to erase it. But the truth, however painful it may be, is that the love she destroyed was the same that sustained her. And no new relationship, no new self, no new beginning will be capable of reproducing that pure feeling, because it was born of innocence. And innocence, once lost, never returns. That is why many men need to understand what this script reveals. Not to hate, but to see. To see the hidden dynamic, the repeated cycle, the emotional trap that imprisons both. Because if the man does not understand the psychology of the post-divorce woman, he will end up living the same cycle with another face, another name, the same story. Ignorance perpetuates pain. Consciousness liberates. And in the end, the greatest secret is this: divorce transforms not only the relationship, it transforms souls. The man who learns from this is never fooled the same way again. The woman who wakes up from this is never the same again. But the majority does not wake up. They just continue playing roles, believing in narratives, hiding wounds under the makeup of independence. And that is why few truly heal. When the curtains fall and the theater of modern love ends, only the truth no one dares say remains. The woman who was once a wife is now a shadow of what she could have been. And the man who survived abandonment carries in silence the power of never being the same again, because he understood what everyone should know. After divorce, she changes, but he awakens.